Have you ever stopped to think that everything you were taught about the world might be wrong? We grow up thinking we know the places, the cultures, the contrasts, but the truth is that most people live in a bubble of misinformation that limits even the way they dream. It's hard to hear this, I know, but it's also liberating. Because those who truly understand the world take advantage of opportunities that others don't even see. The difference between those who remain stuck in mediocrity and those who take advantage of what the world has to offer is the right information. It's not about memorizing boring facts, but about absorbing curiosities that make you smarter, more strategic and, yes, even more admired in conversations. And the best part, the knowledge you'll discover here is practical, real and transforms the way you see your own place on the planet. So, if you're tired of being just another person and want to finally see what most people ignore, stay with me until the end, because today I'm going to show you truths that almost no one tells you, but that change everything. Have you ever stopped to think about the real size of some countries? It's an impressive curiosity. The United States, for example, stretches from end to end for about 9,400 kilometers, if we include Alaska and Pacific Islands like the island of Guam. This is so surreal that, if you could drive non-stop at 100 kilometers per hour, it would take almost 4 whole days to travel that distance. Knowing these proportions changes our view of maps, doesn't it? They distort so much that it doesn't even seem like it. Now, speaking of extremes, Asia is also not far behind in this invisible dispute. From the westernmost point of Turkey to the easternmost point of Russia, there are more than 8,000 kilometers, crossing cultures, languages and climates so different that it almost seems like another planet. For those who like geography, this is one of those curiosities that becomes a topic of conversation in any circle. By the way, have you ever thought about making a list of countries that you would like to visit at the extremes of the map? Like Istanbul and Vladivostok? And, between you and me, understanding these numbers gives you a very real idea of how big and diverse the world is. A good practice is to explore these places without leaving home. Watch documentaries like Human Expeditions from the BBC, which shows the extremes of the globe in a way that makes you want to pack your bags right away. And since we're talking about extremes, did you know that some data about violence in the world will also surprise you? It's funny how some places we associate with paradisiacal vacations hide very harsh realities, isn't it? Jamaica, famous for its beaches and the contagious rhythm of reggae, leads a ranking that no one would like to have, the highest homicide rate in the world. To give you an idea, there are more than 40 deaths per 100,000 inhabitants per year. It's a contrast that creates a reality check and makes us reflect that external beauty doesn't always tell the whole story. This data serves as a great reminder that public safety is a delicate and complex issue. And it's not just there. El Salvador, Honduras, and Venezuela also frequently appear on red lists. If you're thinking about traveling to these destinations, the golden tip is to research safe regions, hire reliable local guides, and get information from those who have already visited. Don't let fear take over, but act intelligently and respect the local culture. And, between us, understanding these curiosities also helps to realize how economic development and political stability are interconnected with quality of life. Want a practical example? Programs like the UN's Safer Cities show solutions applied in many places. Speaking of surprising places, there are regions in the world where nature is protected on an almost unimaginable scale. Few people know, but Greenland holds a true hidden treasure, the largest national park on the planet. The Northeast Greenland National Park occupies an area so colossal that it could fit the whole of Germany, and still have room left over. It's more than 972,000 square kilometers of pure icy immensity, home to polar bears, walruses, and even reindeer. A curiosity that few explore, but which shows how much nature still reigns supreme in certain corners of the world. And don't think it's easy to get there, you know? This is one of the most inhospitable and isolated places on Earth, accessible only through extremely well-planned expeditions. If you're curious about extreme adventures, a documentary that's well worth watching is Frozen Planet. From the BBC, you can feel the brute force of nature without having to leave your couch, and without freezing, of course. For those who want to support conservation without leaving home, a practical tip is to donate to NGOs like WWF, which work in polar regions. Now, to reflect. In a world so consumed by concrete and haste, knowing that there are such pure areas awakens that desire to preserve, doesn't it? And speaking of surprises that break our concepts, Have you ever imagined that the largest French-speaking city in the world is neither Paris nor Montreal? If someone were to ask you what the largest French-speaking city in the world is, I bet Paris would come to mind immediately, right? Well, here's a fun fact that catches many people by surprise. It's Kinshasa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's right, this African metropolis has more French speakers than the capital of France itself. With a population of over 17 million, Kinshasa is a true melting pot of culture, music and, of course, a lot of French spoken on the streets. This revelation shows how colonial history has left deep marks on the world, shaping languages, customs, and social relations. In practice, this means that if you're studying French, it's worth including Congolese songs like those by Fally Ipupa or films like Viva Riva in your repertoire to understand local accents and expressions. Not to mention that this linguistic diversity makes learning much richer and more fun. In fact, noticing these unexpected connections between history, culture, and current events opens your mind in a powerful way. It's as if the world stopped being just countries on the map and became a living web of influences. And speaking of contrasts that broaden horizons, have you ever stopped to think about the absurd extremes of wealth and poverty between countries? When we talk about wealth, it's common to think of the United States or China, right? But what's interesting here is something else. In terms of GDP per capita, the leader is Luxembourg, a small European country that almost disappears from the map. Thanks to its very strong financial system and strategic economic policies, Luxembourg achieves an average annual income that many countries only dream of achieving. And the most interesting thing, you can cross the entire country by car in less than an hour. On the other side of this economic scale is Burundi, an African nation where the daily challenge is simply to survive. It's a huge difference, and understanding it goes far beyond the numbers. It's about education, health, access to clean water, and dignity. Want to see this in a practical way? Compare indexes like the HDI, Human Development Index, of the two countries on the UN website. It's almost like looking at two parallel realities living on the same planet. What's more, realizing these disparities also helps cultivate empathy and global awareness. Small actions, such as supporting microcredit projects for entrepreneurs in poor countries, platforms like Kiva.org are great for this, make a real difference. Have you ever thought about a country so spread out on the map that it crosses all four hemispheres at the same time? Just imagine, a country so spread out on the map that it could be north, south, east, and west at the same time. It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But it's pure curiosity. Kiribati, an archipelago in the Pacific so dispersed that it occupies the four hemispheres of the planet. This particularity makes Kiribati unique in terms of its global location, and also extremely vulnerable to climate change, since many of its islands are just a few meters above sea level. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Sweden holds an interesting title. It is the country with the largest number of islands in the world, more than 260,000. Many of these islands are uninhabited, creating landscapes that look like they came out of a painting. If you like geographical curiosities and want to explore these beauties, I recommend researching the Stockholm archipelago. These are islands accessible by boat, with untouched nature and a charm that only Scandinavia has. Learning this information broadens your worldview in a fascinating way. It's as if the planet suddenly stopped being a generic blue ball and started to have unique personalities, secrets, and stories in every corner. And since we're talking about extreme differences, just wait until you find out which countries lead, and which ones barely do, in obesity rates. When it comes to obesity, many people imagine the United States leading the ranking. But, curiously, the one who takes this title is Nauru, a small island in the Pacific. There, more than 60% of the population is obese. This happened due to drastic changes in diet over the decades, exchanging traditional fishing for industrialized products. A clear example of how globalization can impact even the oldest customs. On the other hand, Vietnam stands out as the least obese country in the world. There, the diet rich in fresh vegetables, rice, and little saturated fat helps to keep rates low. If you want to apply a little of this philosophy to your life, how about trying dishes like pho, rice noodle soup, or goi quan, fresh spring rolls? They are light, tasty, and super practical meals to include in your daily life. Understanding these cultural differences in relation to food is an interesting fact that changes our perception of health and quality of life. And what's more, it shows that simple choices made on a daily basis can have a huge impact in the long run. And while we're on the subject of impact, How about diving into an introduction that will make you see the world and its opportunities in a completely different way? Now that you've seen the world from angles that almost no one else sees, tell me, are you going to let all this knowledge go unnoticed, or are you going to use it to change the way you see and live life? Knowing more than most is an enormous power, but it only makes a difference to those who take action. Which of these curiosities struck you the most? And what action are you already thinking about taking after everything you've learned? If you want to continue discovering secrets, strategies, and curiosities that truly transform, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Come be part of a group that refuses to accept being ordinary and that chooses to live with more purpose, intelligence, and worldview every day. Let's grow together.